VR
Oh, he
before?
loves it. He prior to that event, he DJ'd for me I went to his house physically and we did like a VR event where he was like the main DJ for that night. And it was a lot of fun. We always had a ton of fun. This was like the third time he DJ'd for me, and this was also like I was in town for the night, so
Hello, welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and our guest is...
hey, my name's Keebs.
Thank you very much for
I
joining
appreciate
us.
you being here, Keeps.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
So,
It's my pleasure.
what is it you do here in the virtual world?
So I run this club called Shotsnpot. We are a Quest compatible or Quest friendly club in VRChat.
Oh, wow.
Wait a minute. Hold this thought. Repeat the name of the club again one more time for this old fuck. I gotta hear this again. I giggled what I heard, but I want to make sure I heard it properly.
Yeah, so the club's called Shotsnpot.
Shots and pots. Wow. Nothing wrong with that. Just hope there's plenty of potty shitters, because that'll be a real bitch waiting in line.
So, how did this club you run start DJing? Like, how did you get involved in everything, and even VR? We'd love to hear it from the beginning.
All right, so to start off, I got my first VR headset, the Quest 2, in February of 2022. Now, I'd gotten it for a birthday present for myself because my birthday's in February, and I was like, you know what, screw it. Bought myself a VR headset, ended up falling in love with VR and VRChat like almost immediately. Spent way too many hours in VRChat, and I quickly learned that there was a clubbing scene in VRChat, but that there wasn't many like Quest compatible clubs. So what did I do? Not even a month after I started playing VRChat, I started my own club, and that's the story of Shotsnpot and how we got started. Since then, we've grown. We've done some massive events. We hit hard cap when our server had approximately 350 members. That was a one-time thing, though. But we were really focused on promoting the scene of Quest compatibility, and that you can make events in VR that are Quest compatible, and you don't have to worry about excluding out the poor Questies. They spend all their money on drinks, so they can party the hardest.
Okay. Wow. So there isn't a whole lot of Quest compatibility within like the music and rave scene here in VRChat. Was that like an easy thing to try and promote?
Yeah, so there was a few other clubs that were Quest compatible, but it was basically just Tube at the time. And this was just a year and a half ago, right? It was just this one club really that would run Quest compatible events. There may have been a few other ones here and there, but it was essentially an untapped market, and that's what kind of boosted our success so fast. Now in 2023, end of 2023, there's actually quite a few Quest compatible clubs that I've even helped out with. For example, Quest compatible clubbing. There's some good friends of ours, and we work very closely with them and help them get their roots set up.
Oh, wow.
I got a question for him. What was the difficult part of getting the club to work with Quest 2 and everything else like this? What was your difficult part?
So at the time of the founding of my club, there wasn't. So we had to use a solution called VRCDN, and this wasn't very well known in the scene at the time to get VRCDN, to use VRCDN, because it makes your streams Quest compatible, and that was the biggest hurdle at the time. VRCDN quickly exploded not long after Quest compatible events really started getting promoted. And due to that, a lot more clubs are able to become Quest compatible. However, there is still what I would like to call a stigma in the PC VR community against Quest standalone users. And my idea was, as I wanted to break the stigma, because I was once a Quest standalone user who quickly bought a better equipment so I could play PC VR.
Oh, wow. So for those, like Raptor and I know the stigma of the Quest users, but for those on the other side of this camera who don't know, what are some of the stigmas for Quest users, and what is it you mean about that?
Yeah, so in the PC VR community, Questies are typically seen as less than for whatever reason. The big thing is that a lot of Quest users are children, so it can be difficult to filter out the adult Quest users from the children, because when a headset's as accessible as the Quest 2 was at the time, you're going to have parents who gift their kids these headsets so that they don't have to pay attention to them for a couple of hours a day, right? And a lot of clubs didn't want to put in the effort to pull away staff to make sure that people are all adults in their venue at the time. They just wanted, okay, PC VR, it's done, it's pretty much all adults anyways, we don't have to think about it too much.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. As far as I'm aware, Questies have always been like looked down upon and kind of poked fun of. Even some of them called, like, I think a nickname Squeakers kind of sprouted out of the whole Questie stigma as well.
So what the fuck's my excuse? I'm a Questie.
You're the butt plug.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, you had to bring that up. Thanks. Sorry, folks. Yeah, had to bring it up. Yeah, bring it up.
Of course. What are friends for?
Yeah, why not? You probably have some of those too, right? You just want to, it's a lie. It's okay. Mom will be here to give you a cookie. Yeah, no right. Here's a prick, dude. Throw it through your head, throw it up in the air, and hopefully you can catch it without using your hands. Yeah, that's about the same sense of it all. But hey, no problem.
So in this whole process of starting, like making your own Quest compatible club and groups and working with the Quest compatible Ravers group, what kinds of things have you learned along the way from when you started, and how long did it take for you to kind of jump into the clubbing scene?
So the biggest thing that I learned is that throwing an event is easy, but throwing a good event is hard. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes at a good event, more than a regular VRChat party attender would realize. You have anything from last-minute DJ cancellations to having to deal with people's drama while they're in this world, and your whole idea is that you want to promote a good vibe, and people bring that drama from, oh, I know this person, they're dancing here, I don't like this person, so I'm gonna start problems. Because, you know, when people drink and people smoke and do whatever else they do in the comfort of their own home, emotions tend to be a little bit loosened, and people's lips will people will like to talk about things that they really shouldn't be talking about.
So what kinds of things words I can English what kinds of things in the clubbing scene,
oh my God,
that make the difference between a good party and a bad party?
The biggest thing about a good party is making sure that the hosts are welcoming everybody at the event. That way, the people who are coming into the event and don't really know anybody can at least run to somebody to talk to them if they're not feeling comfortable or something's going on. Then they know where to run to if they need to talk to somebody about it. So that way, we can make sure that the vibe is always a good time for everyone at the club, and it helps keep the people who get obnoxious when they get drunk away, because it's typically the same people, because the VRChat community is fairly small. You'll notice that there's repeat offenders with those kinds of things. So once you kick them out early, it's very easy to maintain a really nice event.
Okay. Alrighty. So what is the big difference? Is there any differences between what you guys do with the Quest compatible parties versus a PC exclusives, or anything you guys do differently versus the conventional?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we do is we need to keep in mind optimization of the world. Now, Shotsnpot, we have 4 worlds currently, and each of those were built from the ground up. Some of them are not so optimized because I was the one who built them, and I'm not like a professional world developer of any kind. However, when you're building for Quest, you have to keep in mind that every little bit of optimization matters. Every little bit of baking your lights, making sure that everything is, you have your occlusion area set up. That all matters a lot to the Quest users, because the more performance you can squeeze out of the headset, the better experience they'll have. The biggest factor I find to running a successful event now that's Quest compatible is how often do the Quest users crash? Because if they're not crashing as much, they're able to enjoy their time better. Granted, Quest users kind of do expect to crash at least once throughout their night. It's just an unfortunate circumstance of the Quest 2 and its hardware limitations.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's not like the optimizations that are available for Quest and VRChat kind of make it easy for those the programs to run. Although the Quest 2 in itself is a fantastic piece of hardware that allows standalone users at least an experience of here in VRChat. It's not like you're able to see a world like this with the amazing lights and stuff like that, but you just get a really amazing window with what it is. And the fact that you're running Quest compatible clubs gives them an example of what another side of VRChat is. So I do give you kudos for building that kind of community for people who are standalone users.
I got a question for him.
Oh.
No, I figured you were going to throw one. Sorry, folks. Okay, since you've been in VR, we always ask this, and usually it's me. I don't know, Line does too. But since you been in VR, what's the weirdest thing that you've ever seen in VR, and you just going, give you that little weird feeling, or you're going, whoa, I got to leave, whatever? What's the weirdest thing you ever seen in VR since you've been on?
Oh, that's a great question. I've seen quite a lot of weird things that at this point, like, I could say something and I wouldn't think it's that weird because I've witnessed it a bunch. But probably for people outside of the VRChat space, I've attended orgies in VR, whether on purpose or accidentally, right? And those are definitely an interesting time.
We got company. Yeah, it's always that way. Yeah, I got to talk to Wilson. He's always doing something behind the bush. Yeah, well, he did. Yeah, that is usually the biggest thing we see in here. But it's always, you always get that line that you're going, now what'd you do once you seen it? When you saw it the first time? What was the first thing that you do?
I was definitely a little bit shocked the first time, but I quickly learned why people have those kinds of experiences in VR. And whether it's from them not being able to get that physical interaction in real life for whatever reason, to just having poor, personal relationship skills, to just it being really easy to find somebody to do that kind of stuff with in VR. It's very much like VRChat's very much an open and accepting space where people can be whoever they desire to be.
Yeah, VRChat does allow people to be.
I don't know. I don't know what my excuse is, but man, I must be putting the wrong cologne on. I got to try that new stuff because it doesn't work for me. I don't care what it is. Yep.
Something, your nicknames say it all.
Yeah, I know. It's a bummer. Truly a bummer.
So, once you started the whole the Shotsnpot club, what processes did you learn in the process to be able to make that more viable and run smoother?
So the biggest thing is streamlining the events to the point where you have a whole system set up, and the planning process itself is painless now. Where every time I want to run an event, the first thing is the day, the time, how long an event, what kind of event, and then now we know the functions, essentially, like the big things. Then we can work on who's gonna DJ for us, who's gonna be there for staff. Are we going to have a lot of regulars coming that night because is there a holiday or is there something going on in real life that people would not be in VR for? There's a lot of factors to think of in that case. but it's been very much just from experience. Everything's streamlined now, and I have a really good staff team that I can trust with running events if I have to leave for whatever reason, or just help me out during the event.
Okay. So how has the community and your regulars thought of the whole Quest compatible clubbing? Like, what has been like VRChat's response to that coming out this year? Oh, last year.
Yeah, so my club has had a change of regulars throughout the year and a half that I've been operating. There's been a few that have stayed from the beginning all the way to present day. However, it's very common that people will stop playing VRChat for whatever reason. You know, life gets busy or they just lose interest in the game. But the ones that have stuck around know the drill on like how to help me out if I need a hand. I'll give a specific example. On New Year's 2022 to 2023, so December 31st, 2022, I ran a 24-hour New Year's event, and because of that, it was a very large event, and it took a lot of time to plan. We had 24 DJs lined up, 1 per hour, plus backup DJs, plus staff hosting at the door for the whole 24 hours to enforce avatar policies and making sure that we just have everything in place so that everybody can have a good time.
Wow. That sounds like one wild event. How did that go? And what did you have to do to prepare for that event, the 24-hour New Year's party?
I had to drink a lot of caffeine to prep because I was up the whole 24 hours. Other than that, though, it was pretty much just working. It wasn't just an event that I ran. It was a multi-club collaboration between 5 clubs. Shout out to Club Luxor, Bad Peaches, Nonstop, and can't remember the other one. Sorry to whoever I'm forgetting. But there was a bunch of clubs in that event, and that's what really helped me run it, because without all these other people behind the scenes helping me out, I wouldn't have been able to do it. We had each club had designated times that they were expected to be there, or at least some members of their staff. And then after that, it was like, okay, if you can be there, show up. If not, don't worry about it. And we had people dedicated to hosting and making sure everybody's cheersing and drinking, make the drinks flow. Everybody gets happy. And then, of course, the door security, because we did have to enforce a dress code policy of poor or better rated avatars, so nobody would really lag too much, especially when the instance got full. That was a very long New Year's hour. Ayla was playing the 11 p.m. to midnight slot for the Eastern time zone, and we were full that whole hour just due to multiple factors. But we were probably one of the few events on that New Year's Day other than the official VRChat event.
Oh, wow. You must have been, from the sounds of it, you were busy. I think last year at New Year's, when Raptor and I were on, it was so busy here in VRChat. We couldn't even leave the instance we're in without being booted out for good.
Lagging out. Booting out.
How did you guys
permanently
handle? How did you guys handle that whole thing? The whole amount of people.
Yeah, so this was before queue systems existed in VRChat. So if you crashed out, you had to just keep trying to get back in and hope and pray that you got lucky. With that in mind, though, people, when they saw the instance was full, they wouldn't always try to get in. They might try once or twice unless they absolutely needed to get in, so our staff could always kind of squeeze in if needed. We also weren't hard capped that whole event. It was only for 2 hours that we were full, to capacity. But otherwise, it was a steady stream of 50 to 60 people, so there was still space for our staff to come squeeze in if they crashed or if anything happened. So in that case, it wasn't that bad. We did have issues with DJs at one point, but I planned for that in advance because it was a special event and I knew it was going to be really busy. I ran a system that most people in VRChat don't do. I ran basically a 2-stream setup where I was the one running the main stream that everyone can actually see. And then the DJs would stream their audio and visuals to me, and I would restream it on that main stream. That way, if there's like technical difficulties with the DJ, then I could put up some temporary music, or I could put up a technical difficulty screen, so everybody in the world knew what was going on without me having to run around like a chicken with its head cut off.
So how'd that system work? Do you still use it, or was it only for that event specifically that you ran that system? Because it sounds effective.
Yeah, so when I know the event's going to be really busy, I'll run it, but otherwise I don't worry about it too much. The system was, like I said, there'd be 2 streams. The DJ would be streaming to their Twitch or VRCDN or whatever, and then I would be streaming to the world using my VRCDN. Now times have changed, you don't need to use VRCDN, but you can still use it for this purpose. So the DJ would stream to Twitch. I would grab their stream from Twitch, and I would stream it onto my screen, and I'd put it on for everybody else to see, basically acting as an insulation barrier in case something were to fail.
Okay. Whoa. Oh. I broke that. It'll buff. If you're enjoying this, please, I would heavily suggest to follow us on any of our social media. If you go down in the thingamabob, down that way, we have a card, metaversedegen.card.co, with all our social media. Feel free to come follow us at any of those places. We've got Discord, we hang out there all the time. Feel free to come chat. Also, we have a Patreon with 2 people who joined up now, and I'm going to give them a little bit of a shout out. One of which is Training Fangs, who's a really good friend of ours, and Forbidden Zero, and also a good friend. So please, come follow us, come hang out. Oh, that's my cue to go. Enjoy the video. During your clubbing process, have you ever, like, what prompted you to do that? Like the whole insulation barrier?
Yeah, so I've had many events, not too many recently, but definitely in the past, where DJs would crash out for whatever reason, and because they're streaming and being on VRChat with one computer, if their game crashes, sometimes their music does too, or their whole computer will crash. And when that happens, it's kind of just dead air for a little while you wait for the DJ to get back. So if I was thinking and planning, okay, what's the best way that we can prevent that? And it's not only that too, but when one DJ is swapping to the next DJ at the hour, what do you want to do, right? You don't want it to be, okay, wait for everybody to load the new link, because you can put it in for everybody, but it may not load correctly. So you have to wait for everybody to load it, make sure that they know that if they need to, they can resync, and then sometimes resync doesn't always work, so then they have to rejoin the world. And the idea is that this could prevent all of that by never actually changing the stream itself. It would be one consistent stream so that people in the event don't have to worry about resyncing and rejoining and all that other crap.
Okay. Wow. It sounds like it works, and sounds like a really good way to prevent issues. Is there anything you've learned from other clubs that you've incorporated into your own process?
Currently, I've worked with a lot of clubs, and I've definitely learned about good people to work with, or let me rephrase that. I've learned how to spot a good person to work with versus a bad person, because let's be honest, now in November 2023, everybody and their mother likes to run VRChat clubs. Especially, I've noticed there's been dozens of new clubs popping up in the past, like 2-3 months. It's very important to know who to work with that will build a lasting relationship versus who's just there to say that they ran a club for a little bit because they were expecting immediate success and they wanted it to blow up right away. And as soon as it doesn't happen, then they get disappointed and they shut down the club.
Does it happen frequently here in VRChat? Because I have heard a lot of club owners kind of say they've noticed a uptick this year and people wanting, as you said, to run clubs. How do you spot that kind of thing, and what do you think causes people to want to create a club and then give up?
Yeah, so prior to this year, there was essentially like a few really solid clubs that everyone would regularly go to, like DDVR, Tube, I guess Schism opened up this year, but Schism in early 2023 was a fantastic club. They're still a fantastic club, but they were definitely one of the like solid foundations of the clubbing community. Then there's like Fishbowl. I know you guys did an interview with that man. But there's tons of other like clubs that were basically solid pillars that have been there for years, and they were the ones that had all the success, I believe, in 2022, 2021, and 2020. And then I found that in 2023 we've had an influx because people are finding out that it's fairly easy to run a club to start, but the moment you want to like get serious about it and actually grow the community, it actually gets really difficult because now you have to deal with drama related with people's personal relationships and trying to keep that healthy boundary of, okay, like I'm running a club, I have to be like professional about this versus like I'm your friend and I want to drink with you.
Okay. Yeah, from what I can definitely see those barriers preventing people from wanting to continue. Is it a common thing that they see those and go, yeah, no, I'm done? And how do you spot people that are like that?
Yeah, so the main thing is that a lot of people will start clubs not knowing what it actually entails. And whether, I'll be honest, I did that too. I didn't truly know what it entailed, but I really had a vision in mind with my club, and that's why it's still active to this day. But a lot of people will go into it not knowing the first thing about running a club or any kind of event, or like they've never participated in online events of any kind. So for them to understand the structuring is a little bit difficult. You'll notice that those people sometimes will also tend to get into a lot more personal drama, and they have a hard time separating the club from their personal relationships, and that's really the biggest issue, is the personal relationships and the professionalism of the club itself. Some clubs will work into lap dancing communities and events, and that's usually where the drama starts, because when you have people rubbing virtual pixels on each other, that's when relationships and drama feelings get involved, right?
Oh my God. I can't talk to you no more, Starlight. You didn't rub me the right way. Literally. Yeah. I like to see how that one goes off. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's...
Yep.
I do see that point for like personal drama being a really good indicator of them not being serious. Because if they're too busy in yelling matches or texting matches or Discord or whatever, it's kind of hard to want to run your event if you're too busy being distracted by silly nothings. I definitely can understand that being a key factor. Is that a common thing within the newer clubs?
Yes, absolutely it is. A lot of people that start new clubs are trying to get to know everybody, and during that time they'll notice that, oh, I don't actually get along with this person, and then they may say something that's not very appropriate, and then that person will get offended and start spreading words about each other, you know. It's how rumors and drama all starts. But I can say that I was guilty of personal drama getting in the way of my club once. But I quickly learned from it, like, okay, keep the drama out of it, be professional at all times at the club, and then if you want to have your personal relationships, do it outside of there. Don't bring them to the club.
Okay. So I have a question on this. You're starting your club. What were some of the things you had to pick up and learn quickly, and what was the process of starting a new club here in VRChat?
So the big thing is that I had to learn that just because you're running a club, not everybody's going to like you or think that it's worth their time to help you out, which is completely okay, right? Everybody's free to help out who they choose. But it was a bit of a learning curve. While the VRChat community is very, very welcoming and friendly, it can be a little bit like pulling teeth if you need to ask specific people on how they did specific things. For example, at one point I was looking for an asset for a world, and the only person that I knew that had that asset was, they had a really popular public world. So when I reached out to them, it took them over 2 weeks to reply, which that's fine, but it's quite a long time, right? When you know for a fact, like if you're playing VRChat, you're pretty much chronically online. So it's likely that they saw the message much sooner than that.
That's a fair point. And how did you get past those barriers yourself, like the whole new club thing, and getting into where you became serious?
The biggest thing that helped me was just running consistently good events and like putting my name out there. So not only attending my own events at all times and always being at my own events, but also going out to other people's events. So you can say like, "Hey, I exist. Like, can we do something together?" Or like, let's talk about how you did this," while you have their attention in VR versus over a Discord message, because it's a lot easier to get people to recognize that you're a genuine person or you're just trying to do something good for the community when you can talk to them with like semi face to face, virtual pixels versus a Discord call, right?
Yeah. The making it personal and not so much just a text box or a picture box you see on a screen. Does that whole in person work? Is it the best way to get your name out there in the beginning?
Absolutely, it is. Making those like professional yet personal connections with people to like make sure that they feel welcome at your club is like the number one key, especially while you're starting out and you don't have a name, is like making sure that your like regular friends are coming along to your clubs, because if they don't want to show up, nobody else is going to want to show up. Or even worse, people will show up, but they'll be like sad and not having a good time, right? And that if they do that and they come and they don't have a good time, then they're never coming back.
Okay. Those are some very good points. What would you tell people who wish to start their own club from what you've learned? So, some couple of points that they could bear in mind.
First thing you can do is go to other people's events. Know how they run their events. See how they run their events. Hang out with the people that are regulars there for a little bit to just kind of get an idea of all these different venues and get yourself a solid idea for worlds. Once you kind of understand how most clubs run and you have an idea for the world, either pay somebody to build it or learn how to build it yourself. Blender is very scary, I know, but it's a very powerful tool, and it's actually gotten a lot easier over the years. Watch some tutorials. If you watch the Blender Guru Donut tutorial, he'll teach you a ton about building assets. So do that, and then once you have an actual world set up, that's probably a good time to debut your club, because you'll have a custom venue. You'll be able to stand out immediately, say, "Hey, I'm different. I'm not just somebody else using another world that anybody can run an event out of."
Okay. Those are some really good points. What have been some of the things that were a bit rough for you to learn in the beginning?
Probably the roughest thing was like having to say like goodbye to people. Some that have been like there from the beginning, but they ended up turning out not to be the people you thought they genuinely were, and they ended up hurting the reputation of the club based on their actions. It's very difficult to say bye to somebody who's helped you out so much, but sometimes it's required when they decide to take a different direction with their attitude.
Okay. That's a very valid point. I'm also really terrible at goodbyes, so I can definitely empathize with that point greatly. It's never the easiest thing to say goodbye to somebody, especially if you never know you're going to see them again.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Where do you wish yourself to go? Like, what are some of your future plans, and how do you wish to grow?
Well, where do we wish to grow? That's a good question. So I want to move the events into a like mixed reality style of events eventually. So having a real life portion with people in VR, being able to interact with these people in real life. It's a crazy concept. I know that people have done like VR/IRL events. I've done one like that, but it's not to the same degree that I'm envisioning. And unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, the technology isn't there the way that I want to run my event. So I hope that one day I'll be able to do it the way I want to, where the way that I imagine it essentially is you can have a projector of some kind, like real-time map and make it so that everybody can see each other pretty much. The projector can map the people on the physical dance floor, and then it can also project the screen of like people projected from 3D space into a real life event, which is some crazy like idea that I really want to happen eventually. So if you're some crazy smart developer, please work on this technology so I can have one of the greatest events of my life.
I'm not a smart man, but I do know VRChat and AltSpace have this hologram kind of technology within VRChat where they're capable of projecting players and audio via each instance that's open. So if you're standing on stage, let's say right now I'm on the stage speaking to a crowd of audience, each instance on the stage where I'm standing will be projected the way they see it on the stage. Now other instances won't see a name tag or anything. They just see a thing staring at them and speaking, but that would project itself across to each instance. Maybe there's a way with that Unity asset program to work with a projector of sorts and not just projected via an instance, but also via a projector. Now, how you would see it in a 3D space, that may be a bit more difficult. You may have to use fog, other kind of means in order to project what you're trying to show them in a 3D space. I do know some real life events use like mirrors or windows, and they project it on that way, or something like that.
No, fair enough. That's definitely something for me to look into. I hope for one day there to be a commercially viable, mass scale production of something to which we just described, so that way it's a lot easier and more events can run stuff like that, because that's honestly where I see the future going, having these crazy mixed reality events where people in real life can interact with people in VR, and VR people interact with those in real life, where it's honestly just like a crazy fever dream I've been having, but it's like eventually I want to get to there. And with that in mind, it's going to be starting with lots of really good VR events and then moving it over to real life events and throwing really successful real life events and eventually combining them together.
There is another option as well for that to be done, is with an augmented reality. With with the advent of the Quest 3 coming out, I saw some videos from Tube coming out where they have the augmented reality overlay to what you see in your room. So you'd wear the fun headset and it would project like the little DJ station and the players running around within the augmented reality. So you'd still see your room through the cameras, but then you'd also see the little triangle in the DJ booth from Tube, and then people running around. So that is another option you could take as well. Not go like hologram without glasses, but say, hey, if you have a phone or a VR headset or AR glasses, you could see what else. It'd be kind of like going through the wardrobe, one would say, going from not wearing a headset to sliding it over your face and seeing something else entirely.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic idea. I didn't even know like Tube did anything about that. I honestly don't follow Tube as much as I really should, because they are definitely forefront or in the bleeding edge of the technology in this space. Them and Shelter are very much pushing the boundaries of what you can and can't do in real life and in VR.
I chronically follow new VR and AR stuff. It's like all I do now. It's like, oh, cool, moves. Let's see what's on. Oh, cool, someone has face tracking via little cameras and lasers. Or, oh, hey, there's this niche company working on haptic gloves that use strings. So within the algorithms, I got someone shared a post with Tube. It was actually pretty cool to see that you can augmented reality, because I do know with like there's Vive is working on some cool stuff. You have like Meta Quest with a Quest 3 and AR. So it is a breaching technology. We won't need to have like some massive Star Trek hologram thing in the center of a room projecting everything. But instead, you can have like a $200, $300 Quest thing on your face. Get the same effect. Ooh. Come on. There you go.
Yeah, that is like, I'm really excited for the technology to gradually improve. So I'm really looking forward to my dreams becoming a very attainable reality versus a like still a little bit far away. I am looking forward to throwing more real life events So I threw one in February this year, and the attendance wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, but that was due to a lot of factors that were inside my control that I didn't really think of too much. I didn't really care to promote the event too much for the real life people, but I still had a good attendance given that how much promotion was done, and it mostly being like friends and family, being like, or not even family, but just like friends and closer friends that I consider family to be there. But with that in mind, we had a great attendance in VR on that event because we also had a VR portion where we were streaming the IRL, the real life stuff from the DJ booth was all getting streamed into VR.
Oh wow! So, what was the planning of the real life event like, and what did you expect it to be versus what did you learn from running your first IRL event?
Yeah, so the big thing is that we had a lot of planning behind the scenes because it wasn't just a like, hey, everybody meet up at this location. No, we had to get speakers, we had to get lights, we had to get all the equipment in a physical location that nobody had any, it was an empty Airbnb that my friend owns, and she very graciously let us use it for the event because she attended it as well, but we still had to haul in thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear. The DJ boards alone were probably $5,000-$6,000 because every DJ brought their own board because they're like, oh, I want to scratch on my own board because they're VR people, so they're very particular about the way they like things, right? But we had Fricked Up. He brought in 2 PA speakers plus a bunch of other equipment, mixers and all that stuff. Laptops and computers. Fricked Up brought that. He runs a club called Only Love Fam that's also Quest compatible. We had Ayla, the DJ. He's a fairly popular name in VR. He was there as well. He was DJing. We had myself. I DJ'd there. We had a good friend of mine who's not very much in the VR space anymore. He's touching grass now. Renzo. He DJ'd there as well. Was a lot of fun. We had a Okami Wolf. And my actual uncle, like blood-related uncle, was there as well, and he DJs, and he's a fantastic Afro House DJ, and we had so much fun that night.
Oh, so, sorry, you continue. My bad. I get excited. I'm sorry.
I remember. No, that's okay. That's okay. That night, actually, I remember I got up like that before the event started. 9 a.m. I woke up. Event starts at we started at 7-8 p.m. Which is still fairly early, but it was just like I woke up that day and I was driving all across the Toronto area because that's where we hosted it. It was downtown Toronto at an Airbnb. It was a really nice venue. I was driving around Toronto picking everybody up because nobody had a car. Nobody had any ways to bring any equipment. And I don't live in Toronto anymore, so I borrowed my mom's car who lives in the area, and I was just driving around. I wasted a whole tank of gas that day because that's how much driving I was doing, back and forth to pick things up, drop people off, and make sure that everything was prepped and ready to go. But I woke up at 9 a.m. I went to bed at 5 a.m. that night. They were still playing music after the event started, so they started at 7 p.m., we'll say. I went to bed at 5 a.m. I woke up at 10 a.m. 5 hours later, and they were still playing music. And I had to tell them, guys, we have to return the rental equipment. You got to stop playing music. We got to tear down. It was just a really long event, and they didn't want to stop. They were just going at it hard. At one point, Fricked Up, because everybody else was freaking tired as hell. They were all just taking turns on the board while I was asleep. But Fricked Up was DJing. Fell asleep in the middle of a song, woke up before the end of the song, and still managed to mix it really well with another track. It was really funny.
Oh my God. Wow, that's definitely playing your music and falling asleep to it. It must have been a really, lullaby, if you get my drift.
Sounds like they went hard.
I doubt it, but hey.
What did your real life uncle think of the whole thing?
Yeah, no shit.
The virtual world and your real life event. Has he ever been in VR?
Oh, he loves it. He prior to that event, he DJ'd for me I went to his house physically and we did a VR event where he was the main DJ for that night. And it was a lot of fun. We always had a ton of fun. This was the 3rd time he DJ'd for me, and this was also I was in town for the night, so I was like, okay, let's throw this event, whatever, you know, with lots of planning. I booked a flight for this event and everything. It was a lot of fun, but he loves it, and actually he semi-regularly DJs for Shotsnpot. And he's open to DJing for other clubs too. If anybody wants to book some Afro House, hit up me and I'll get you in touch with my uncle and myself. We'll rock your socks off with some Afro House. I believe Lion Turtle actually got to hear one of the other nights.
Really? Was it with the Misbehaving event when you were playing? Was that the one you're talking about?
It wasn't Misbehaving. It was Cutie Blast, I believe you were at.
Oh.
I could be mistaken. You could have been at a different event. My memory is like terrible, like a goldfish. So.
Don't worry. So is mine. I have to very regularly leave notes to myself for everything I'm gonna forget. Like, if you're to stare at my Google Calendar, is it a terrifying list of just blurbs of everything? So I definitely understand. I don't quite remember. I do greatly apologize if I don't remember your music. Although, what is Afro House? Because I've never heard the term before personally.
Yeah, so Afro House is a mix of like house music infused with Latin and Afro like theme, essentially. So you get like for example, the main instrument you may hear is like a djembe. I don't even know if that's how the proper way to pronounce it. Spelled Djembe. It's a African instrument that's a drum. And it's either you can put it in your like arm, like under the armpit, and like drum it like that, or you can put it between your like thighs and sit down and drum with it. It's a lot of fun. It was one of my favorite instruments as a child to play during music class. I had so much fun learning how to play that thing, and it's a very beginner friendly instrument, but it makes such a beautiful sound, and it really helps out bring that the spirit of Afro House into the music. You can also hear, you'll notice that it's more like lyrics that you may not be able to understand. Most Afro House tracks have some kind of other language as their main like vocals. Granted, they don't use many vocals at all. So with the mix of like the very like I guess the best way to describe it is like tribal sounding drums and foreign vocals, so non-English vocals. Sometimes French, sometimes Portuguese. It could be all kinds of like languages, Spanish as well, or any of the millions of African languages that I don't know how to spell, like don't know about. There's tons and tons and tons of other languages that they use, and that's really what like helps make it what it is.
Oh wow! So I take it you've been listening to Afro House with your uncle and stuff for quite a while. Then you sound very familiar with the genre.
Very familiar, yes, but I actually only discovered the genre it was only about a year ago. It was October 2022 when my uncle actually played it for me for the first time, and I fell in love with it immediately. I was really drunk that night, so maybe that was an influencing factor, but the emotions really stayed with how much I enjoyed the tracks. There's this track called Les Gouttes, and it's a very, very popular Afro House track, but I don't even know what the lyrics are saying, and I've tried to Google what the lyrics are, but everybody says it's just gibberish. They're not actually saying any actual words. They're just making sounds that sound like very melodic, and it just worked out. But it's an absolutely beautiful track, so if you guys ever have a chance, listen to Les Gouttes, and that's the track that made me love Afro House.
I'll definitely have to look at it afterwards. If you wouldn't mind afterwards, like providing a link to it, I could put it in the Hoobly What's so the people watching can listen to it too. Go down the description. The little thing down there. There's lots of fun things down there. But yeah, so what was it like when your family first found out and stuff? It sounds like they're in some of your real life is involved. How do they feel about you running the club and the whole VRChat scene you're running?
So my uncle, the one who DJs, absolutely loves it. The rest of the family, it is kind of just, they understand it's a pet project of mine. They're very indifferent to it. They want me to succeed and they want me to do well, but they also want me to make sure I'm not spending too much time on it where it's distracting my other responsibilities in my life.
So how has your VRChat and life balance been with running Shotsnpot?
To start, it was a little rough. I was spending way too much time in VR. In the first like year, not even year, was like the first like 8 months of VRChat. I put in over 1,000 hours.
Wow.
And it was way too many hours. So I've slowed down since then. But with that in mind, it's still a bit of a difficult balance because now I don't spend as much time in VRChat, but I spend just as much time working on world development and planning the events behind the scenes as I used to while I was in VR. I work a ton more on Blender and Unity, trying to build custom experiences for people to enjoy a couple of times and then never use that world again, which is honestly like a real big pet peeve of mine, is that I'll throw out worlds after I've used them a few times.
So how did you get started with making worlds then? Like when did that start, and what made you want to make those unique experiences?
So I always wanted Shotsnpot to have multiple worlds of variety of different styles. The only reason why I got into building worlds myself was because I commissioned somebody to build a world. They did a great job given the budget. However, it was expensive, right? And money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, technically it does if you really want to get caught like fancy about it, or not even technically if you live in like Canada with plastic money, but it's expensive, right? And I can only spend so much money on VRChat before I go broke. And I was already like tipping DJs a lot, so I was giving DJs all, like pretty much every single time somebody DJed for me, I was giving them money when I didn't have to, but because I really appreciated the work that they were doing and they were helping me out. And because of that, I didn't really have a ton of money to put into worlds. So after that first world, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to save myself hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year, and focus on making my own worlds. And that way, they may not be as good, but at least I don't have to pay thousands of dollars every year for worlds.
So where did you start to learn making worlds?
So the first place that I went to learn was YouTube. The first and foremost was learning Unity tutorials. I learned how to do like basic scripts, like mirror toggles and those kinds of things. And then it was pretty much just, okay, how do we make a world in itself? So what did I do for my first world? I made OnlyFans, which is quite literally a world that is only fans. And it uses a stock asset from Valve, or it's just like one of those like fans that go in like vents. And it's literally just a floor of those fans repeated, and then wall, and a wall. So it's a cube with an open top, so this light still comes in. And I made sure the colliders were on so you wouldn't fall through the worlds, and bam, you spawned in and you're in OnlyFans.
I'm glad that world exists here in VRChat. That is an amazing idea. So was it easy to pick up at first, building worlds and the Unity and scripts and stuff?
Yeah, so the beginning was definitely difficult to start with. Building like assets themselves is fairly easy in Unity, but building detailed and good assets is actually very difficult. The scripting itself, it just takes a lot of learning. Once you get used to the Udon graphing in VR, like the VRChat system for coding, it's very, very, very simple. You have to learn a couple of things like booleans and like urinary negations, but once you understand like those concepts, which are fairly basic, then you can pretty much make whatever you desire in VRChat with just some creative thinking about how it works. It's very much about changing your mindset to think about how the code works versus how a regular person would expect it to work.
May I ask what the difference is between those two, though? How people expect it to work, and how do you got to change your mindset?
Yeah, so the idea is that people think with a lot of implications, things will be implied or inferred. You can't do that with a computer. Everything needs to be spelled out plain and easy to understand. So in this case, for let's say a mirror, for example, right? You want a high quality mirror, a low quality mirror, and a toggle off, right? So those are 3 buttons. Now, you would expect it that when you press a button, it just pops up the correct one, right? But what you actually have to do is that you have to set it up. When the player presses this button, I need to check to see if any of the other mirrors are on. If the other mirrors are on, turn them off and turn this one on. And that's basically like the difference in thinking, right?
So there's multiple steps to having those buttons work. How in Udon script, how necessarily is an example of how you would do that?
Yeah, so you would need an event interact. So when an event interact basically is just like when the player interacts with this, you need to have the assets themselves labeled and put into the script. So you can have high quality mirror, low quality mirror, and off, for example. Or you can just have off as like a default value. And then you need to do, we need to do a Boolean which checks the state of it. And then a unary negation, which basically says if it's on, do the opposite. If it's off, then turn it on, which that makes the button an on and off versus just one or the other. If you had just, for example, an event interact like toggle on, you could do that, but you would also need an off switch, right? So in that case, you're reducing the amount of buttons in that case. There's lots of great examples on YouTube. There's Vowagen, I believe is how you pronounce him. He is a fantastic creator, makes some great tutorials. He doesn't only teach you the Udon graph, the VRChat stuff. He teaches you how to do it in C# as well if you actually want to learn how to code. So props to him and making all those great tutorials.
So with a lot of those things, you can write it in C#, not just Udon sharp.
That's correct. Well, Udon graphing, so Udon itself is the coding language of VRChat. So Udon Sharp is a compiler for C# where it converts the C# into Udon.
I guess I showed how much I know and understand this stuff, which, fun fact, I don't. Honestly, I'm glad you explained that because I learned something, and thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So with a lot of these things, you mentioned earlier you wanted to build unique experiences with worlds. What were some examples of those unique experiences?
Well, the first one that I wanted to do was, at the time that I searched, there wasn't any good worlds for it. Now there are. I wanted a really like custom house party that gave a different vibe than the other ones. Now there's tons and tons of great worlds out there that have those excellent house party vibes. But we wanted it to be a Shotsnpot, like frat house vibe, right? You go in, you're like, fuck yeah, it's a college rager kind of thing, right? And we made an experience like that where it works really well. The music's like the DJ's in the backyard. There's a pool. There's everything you could want. There's games, all that kind of stuff. And of course, there's beer pong in the kitchen, right? Because you can't have beer pong unless it's somewhere near the kitchen. But it was a custom experience that people got to really enjoy, right? The next thing we did was we wanted to build I wanted an industrial style event. So I built the hangar, which is quite literally, the idea was, let's just turn an aircraft hangar into an event space. And that's basically what I did with some light modifications to the idea. But it's just like a dark place with not a ton of lighting, lots of audio reactive lights, and it's just a ton of fun.
So with a lot of these unique things, what helps you bring up those ideas, like the college rager and the hangar? Like, was this something you and your friends were talking about in the staff of Shotsnpot?
Yeah, so it was definitely the staff and myself. We just would get into discussions about good ideas, and then eventually we would just keep bouncing ideas off of each other, and one would stick. My former co-owner, who stepped down due to personal reasons, Nurko, he's a fantastic dude. He was the one. My tracking just said goodbye. Oh boy. All right.
Well,
so
we have that situation. No worry. We go through that all the time in here.
All right. He was the one who was like, okay, I want a college rager kind of vibe. He was the one that was really big into it. So I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. And because of that, we had the world design idea like fairly easily because he had this world that he really wanted.
Okay. That's that's actually really awesome that with your staff you incorporate like their ideas as well as your own to give like the feeling like they belong. It's not just we're doing this today, here's what we're doing. Um how now one thing usually have a questions for is the running the staff part of your club something easy, and how did you learn that? Like the organization and all of that.
Running my staff is really easy because I'm very picky about who I make staff. I've had dozens of people come up and be like, hey, can I be staff and like help you guys out? And I've turned them down pretty much every single time because I just find, at least I'm very, 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 very picky about who I work with in my club specifically. And I want people that are going to be there for a long time and not just to be like, okay, I'm staff now and then never show up. And I know I've learned on how to differentiate people based on like who deserves or like who should be staff and who shouldn't from my times that I ran like a Minecraft server, because every kid would be like, can I have op, please? Please make me admin. Please, please, please.
So how did that whole Minecraft server help you learn the difference of who deserved it, who's not? What were those lessons that translated over into Shotsnpot?
Well, the big thing is that I was just learning at the time of me running a Minecraft server. I was a teenager. Must have been like 15, 16. I ran it for a few years, but it was never a big server. It was mostly just for like a small community of people. We had maybe like 100 people on Discord, very small community. But it was pretty much just like finding people who were regulars and they just came onto the server to enjoy everybody else's company. Those are the people who you can trust to make staff versus the people that are asking. At least that's what I found personally, because not only will they be there because they really enjoy themselves at the server or at the place, but they also will help out because they want to see us succeed as much as like I want to succeed.
Okay. Fair point. Now, once you choose your staff, how do you run? How does it run in terms of like your organization? Like after people are chosen, like you're now a thing. How do you do that so people are happy and content, and you're able to run things effectively? Like you personally.
That's a great question. Yeah. So the idea is that my staff they basically have as much power as I do, except that I can fire them. That's like the whole idea. So they can, if they want to run an event, they can run an event. If they want to just hang back and attend events, that's fine by me. And if they're not able to show up to an event, that's fine. As long as they're not the ones who planned it, or if they did plan it, they have to have somebody else there to cover. They're free to choose as much as they want or as little as they want. And that's the main idea behind it. But given that my staff do enjoy helping out a lot, so even the ones that don't, I have 3 total staff right now. That's me and 2 moderators. So we got Chaz, who runs roleplay events, which isn't necessarily something of like the main part of Shotsnpot, but it's a great addition to our community and people love it. We have a lot of regulars who absolutely love the role-playing nights. And he wants to run them weekly, but it turns out to be more like bi-weekly the events run, where he'll come up with a whole scenario. He makes them 1 hour prior to whatever event we plan on going on later that night. And it starts sharp at the top of the hour and it ends like sharp at the end of the hour. And that way people can just like go there for 1 hour, spend as much time as they like, enjoy themselves really well, like really a lot, and head off to somewhere else and continue their night as like the idea is that's like a pregame. They can be a little silly, pretend to be somebody else, and just have a good time.
Okay. So what do those role play events look like, may I ask? Like, how or they sell stories? Is a certain like, yeah, what are they, may I ask? Sorry, I was kind of confused myself a bit. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so those the roleplay events can range anywhere from like, for example, the last one we did was we had a fake AA meeting essentially, where it was like, okay, your character has an addiction or a problem, and you have to like tell everybody what your problem is, and people will chime in and try and help you, right? Just like any of those meetings would go. Granted, they're very loose, right? So, I found my wife was cheating on me and now I want to stab her in the back. Oh yeah, you should totally do that. Here, take this knife. Or like, I'm addicted to eating food, and it's like they start eating people in the events because they're like, I'm so hungry, and they start gobbling people up, pretending to eat them. We've also had events.
No, you
continue. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, my one's just a statement. Ignore me.
All right,
continue on.
All right. We also, like, prior events were like, oh, we have King Arthur, so somebody gets to be King Arthur, and now we're all meeting up to help try and stop a war that just broke out.
Wow. Sounds like you guys have quite a variety of stuff there that you guys run. That's actually pretty awesome. Does things like that, do they help you stand out from everyone else?
Stand out a little bit, yes. It's definitely not something that people know about until they're in the Discord server, because we don't really promote it that much. It's very much for like a regulars only kind of event, where you have to, if you're in the Discord server, you can see the events and you're more than welcome to join. But they were catered towards the regulars who want something else to do sometimes, because you know, you can only go out and party every weekend for so long before you're like, okay, I need something new.
Okay. So what kinds of things help you stand out from the other events that go on, may I ask?
The biggest thing is that our community is very welcoming. I've been to many other events, especially as the servers grow in size. The larger you are, the harder it is to maintain a cohesive community. It kind of, when you come to Shotsnpot, it's more like, okay, welcome back. All your friends are there. You know you're gonna have a good time because you know everybody there. Versus when you go to like a really large event, you're kind of like, I might know one person over there in that corner and one person over there in that corner, but the last time I spoke to them was like 3 years ago, and I don't remember their names, and this is kind of awkward. So who am I gonna go talk to?
Okay. So you're trying to incorporate the whole community aspect of it versus the other people. Has that been an easy, have you been able to cater to community in that nature to continue on the vibe you wish to incorporate?
It's definitely been difficult. Maintaining a community is probably one of the hardest things you can do in VRChat, because it's so easy to run a community. There's so many communities out there, whether they're for clubbing or not. So people really have basically as many choices as they want to go and meet new people in the VR space, because we have all these diverse groups. So we try to stand out by just really being welcoming from the start and making sure that everybody feels welcome and that they can be free to be who they are without judgment at our space. While, you know, obviously we enjoy our beverages and we smoke, I still encourage people, you know, be comfortable with what you drink and know how much you're taking, because it's very important to not go overboard. You know, stay hydrated, drink water, and you know, that's okay. Nobody knows if you're actually drinking, right? Like, for example, I have a beer in my hand right now. You can't tell. You can't see what beer I have in my hand. It could be a glass of water for all you know, right? You would never know.
Yeah, VRChat. I've noticed VRChat's drinking culture is very thick, because you see it everywhere. People drinking, whether like partying at a club or they're at drinking night or in a hangout world. It seems like a very common thing, and I think it's very easy to get swept up in the whole fun and atmosphere of like clinking drinks together, and especially when you yourself are looking at how much you are drinking because you got a 12-pound potato on your face.
Yeah, so during the early days in Shotsnpot, we were definitely more focused on like excessive drinking. But as we grew, I not quickly, but I learned that maintaining a community is more important than having people excessively drink all the time. Granted, it's easier to maintain a community when they're all drunk, but it's important that you make sure that people can enjoy themselves sober as well, because that's what will keep them coming back. I have a lot of great friends in other clubs that those clubs haven't necessarily realized that yet, and I see their regulars like drinking like every weekend excessively, or like they drink not only on the weekends, but they'll drink during the week too. And I get concerned sometimes about how much people are drinking in VR, and that's kind of like the big change for me was I eventually saw a video from Fia, who owns the virtual reality show, about VRChat's drinking culture, and that really put me into a different headspace about how I should approach maintaining a community that drinks, but we try to be responsible about it.
So when you changed your headspace on the whole incorporated drinking with your club, how did you shift your community out of that mindset and into where you wished it to go? And was it easy to do?
To be honest, I'm still working on shifting it. It's been like a year in the making pretty much, but it's been a lot of challenges to try and shift the idea, because when people go to a club, they're expecting to be drinking, which is good. That's fine, right? But know your limits, play within it. That's a fun fact. If you live in I believe it's Ontario Lottery, that's one of their slogans, know your limits, play within it, for the casinos. But it's our goal is to promote a healthy, flourishing community, and we can't do that if everybody's like excessively drinking, and oh no, now somebody's in kidney failure or liver failure because they drank too much and they had to go to the hospital. That really puts a strain on the community, right? Now luckily we haven't had that knowingly happen yet, but it's I've noticed that people who tend to drink a lot in excess will be more prone to having personal family problems, and I'm sure there's studies out there to support that I can't like reference off the top of my head. But anecdotally, right, we all know that drinking can cause relationship issues as well, because when you're not in a sober state of mind, it's harder to maintain healthy relationships. And because of that, I've really been pushing towards like, okay, let's like I encourage people, drink water shots during my events, because it's important that people are there and they're able to remember the events, because if you don't remember the event, you're never coming back either. You may have had a great time, but if you can't remember it, then is it really a great time?
You do have a very valid point there. Yeah, I have noticed that too amongst the VRChat crew, is those who drink in excess tend to have very funny real lives, and some of them tend to chronically be here as well. Some of them anyway, at least the ones I've met have been that way. Like they're like, as soon as you pop online and you go, oh look, so and so's on, there they are standing amongst people, and usually kind of like this, signifying there's something in their hand, drinking in excess, probably have been there since the morning hours.
Yeah, and personally, I have friends who are still like that, and I always try to knock a little bit of sense into them too, without being too pushy about it, because it's a very delicate subject, right? It's very important they be like, oh, what, you're drinking already? Isn't it like this time for you? And sometimes they'll blow it off like, yeah, or they'll make up an excuse, but sometimes it's good to like give them that little bit of reality without being too judgmental about it. I've also noticed that some people only come on VR to drink, and you'll see those people on more often than, like, you'll notice when they first get onto VR, they'll only be on weekends. And then, one day they're on a Wednesday, then a Thursday, and like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then, oh no, now they're on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, back to Wednesday again, right? And then next thing you know, they're on every day of the week, drinking every night. And for those of you who don't live in the US, you know how expensive alcohol can be. Canada, where beers cost upwards of like, in terms of American dollars, they're anywhere between like $2 to $2.50 American per 355 ml. Like a glass of Corona can be like $3. And that's when you buy them in bulk and not at the bar, right? And that's really expensive, right? And somebody who doesn't live in the US, I live in Canada, if you could, based on the previous conversation, if you didn't know, drinking is a very much expensive hobby, and that really helped me as well to realize, okay, maybe we are drinking a little bit too much here, and let's hold our horses a little bit, but still have a good time.
Yeah, I do very much agree with you there. Drinking is a very, very expensive thing. I used to know somebody who was like that as well, except she would drink wine. and she would get out of work. She'd have, when I first started meeting her or noticing her drinking habits, she'd start coming back to her house with like one bottle, not a small one, like, you know, those really big 700 ml ones that are pretty big around, probably equivalent of 2 wine bottles, and then 1 became 2, became 3, and that was like on her days off, and then 1 or 2 or 3 days, and then next thing you know, she's perpetually drinking wine in that funny state of mind. And I very much worry for people like that. It's not something I wish people to see do, because like when you're inside the drunk state, it's fantastic and everything's fun and great. When you're like sober looking in, it's kind of sad sometimes. Very rarely you'll find the functional drunk, but a lot of the time you don't sound nearly as coherent as you think you do. You're not as cohesive, and I wish VRChat kicked it back a little. Moderation, one would say. Yeah, VRChat.
Yeah, we're definitely on the same page about that. It's important to remember too that a lot of people will use VR as an escape from their personal lives for one reason or another. And those that do use it as an escape tend to be found more often in the clubbing communities, because it's very easy to forget about your problems when you're drinking or consuming any kinds of alcohol or drugs, right? So that's why I'm really trying to push towards having a safe but fun time, right? Know your limits, play within it. I don't really care what you do, as long as you're able to attend to your personal responsibilities before you come party. That's fine by me. You know, help yourself. If you choose to drink every night, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not going to encourage you either, right? And that's also why when at the start of Shotsnpot, we were running events once a week. Then we went from once a week to twice a week, where we'd run them Friday, Saturday. And then sometimes we'd also run additional events throughout the week. At one point, I think the week coming up to New Year's, I ran an event every day coming up to New Year's. So for 7 days, I ran an event every night. And what was I doing on those nights? I was drinking, right? I was having a good time. Granted, I was off work because I was on leave. Like I had time off work, so it was okay on my end. But I saw people who went to work, you know, come back, they get on, they come to my events, they start drinking right away. And they don't drink a little, they drink a lot, right? Granted, like, people are free to do what they wish, right? But try to keep in mind, you know, moderation is key.
Agreed. Especially when you're wearing a headset, it's hard to tell how much you're actually drinking, especially since a lot of people will drink while they're not, without pulling the headset up to look. A lot of the time they'll just kind of stay in it, kind of go searching for it over on the side, and then drink, talking to their friends still, kind of like we are. And it's very hard to tell, especially if you're drinking hard liquors as well. Like little bits here and there, and the next thing you know, a couple minutes later of socially drinking, keeping up with everyone around you, you're like half a bottle deep. It's not, yeah, it's kind of scary sometimes to see people like that. What do you think, Raptor?
Well, the biggest thing is anything like me. Well, when I come in here, I've done the party scene big time, literally blow it out of the water before VR. So you were hitting the bars and all this kind of stuff. When you get a little older, you learn. You look back, going, God, what the hell did I do, and where, and why, and all. VR, don't get me wrong, you're in your own backyard. It's a good way to say it. But I social drink. You know, I'm not in a hurry. I've worked the bars in real life. You see the drunks, you go, yep, oh, he's back. You know, and you just sent him home and everything else, and he's right back at it, and you're going, holy Christ. And you know he's got a family. You know the people, especially from a small town. You pretty much know everybody knows everybody. It's just one of those things that, you know, they got to relieve it some way or another, but still have common sense. And they throw common sense in the bottom of a bottle or a can, whatever it might be. Most people, they don't realize that they just, whatever the situation might be, even if it's in VR or in real life, they're trying to run from it, knowing sometimes it's not even running from anything. It just, I got to blow steam. And, I've worked my ass off. Sometimes they work their ass off to a grindstone. They're in every day, just like what you're saying. And they got to blow steam, and it's the only way they know how, not thinking other ways to know how. And you're right. It's a nutcracker in here. It can be a real nutcracker. And I've seen, don't get me wrong, you and I both know wine. We go through our spurts, everything else like this. Usually, we don't. I was going down that road. I went through an ordeal of myself. And it's bad when you have somebody that, I have kids, that taps you on the shoulder and go, hey, you got to slow down. You're going to be in the bottom of the bottle. And I've been there before when I was in college, because that's all you did was party your ass off. You went to class, party. That's all you did. And everything else like this. When you hear that saying, what'd you do for the first 2 weeks of college? 12-ounce curls. People look at you, huh? Yeah, 12-ounce 12 bottles, whatever. But, like what you're saying with your club and stuff like this, your biggest concern, and I can see it, is you're concerned not to try to push them. You're just a caring sir because you want them back again without having too much health problems, any trouble. And that's great. That's a concerned club owner. And that's in the same thing in the real life. When you work behind a bar and you got those guys that you gotta shut off. You don't get me wrong, it's money in your pocket, but you gotta shut them off and send them home. And everything else like this. And then they get pissy at you and you go through a whole fucking 9 yards. All you can tell them is, guess what? I care. Sorry, I care. It's just one of those things. So the biggest thing, folks, no matter what you do or who you are, hey, we're all caring beings, right? Wayne? We're just all caring beings. That's all it amounts to. You're just giving a crap about the people that come to your club. And that's great. It'd be better that way than not give a shit at all. Because then it just gets out of hand and you're the one that's got to deal with the lump of eggs that just got cracked. And then it's on your conscience and everything else. And it's nuts. It really is.
Indeed. Oh.
Yeah, I totally agree. The big thing about me, like Raptor was saying, is just making sure that I'm creating an inclusive community that people can come back to. That not only can they drink in moderation and have a good time, but they're able to come back again and again and again. And that's really what makes us so different versus other clubs.
Well, there, Keebs, thank you very much for
it's
joining
a good goal.
us. Indeed. I wish you the absolute best.
Yes, it is.
And thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to meet and speak with you. Is there anywhere the people of the good
Do you have any
other side of the screen listening can find you? Well,
yeah, the first place that you guys can find me is my Discord server, discord.gg/Shotsnpot. No spaces or anything, just shots, N, the letter N, not and, pot, no S at the end. So very easy to find me. My Discord username is the same as my VRChat username and what everybody else calls me. So if you really have a query that you need to ask me personally about, you can just shoot me a message on Discord, Keebs. I'm very easy to find. We do try to run events now. We've scaled back to about once a month. Granted, I say once a month, but we still end up doing events like 3 times a month due to collaborations and other things. But we plan one event a month now. But yeah. Thank you so much. You say you had the pleasure was all yours, but really it was mine. All right. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a great time.
Oh yeah, we enjoy having you. We really do.
We enjoy speaking with you and everyone else we speak with just as much as you enjoy being here. It's a pleasure getting to meet and see the different opinions and viewpoints and where people start and where they go. I enjoy it just as much. That's why I'm thanking you. I appreciate your time because time is a currency you can only spend once. So with that said, it's appreciated greatly.
Yep.
Want to close us out, Raptor?
Sure will. Folks, no matter what you do, party hardy, but use the noggin because God only gave you one. And guess what? You can't come back again if that noggin's cracked like an egg, or in this case, it's in a pot, if you get my drift. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you again. Bye.